I never thought I would find myself standing in the middle of my living room, staring at dozens of police cars lining the street in front of my house, while my wife collapsed to her knees on the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. It all started with a dog, Benji, our female yellow Labrador, whom we had raised since she was only 8 weeks old. Gentle, obedient, never once bitten anyone. And yet, that night, when I heard the phone ring at 11 o'clock, and Anne's trembling voice on the other end said that Benji had just lunged at her and bitten her again, I knew something was very wrong. It was not that Benji had a problem. It was that something was hiding right inside my house. Let me tell it from the beginning. Jessie, my wife, became pregnant last spring. It was the happiest news we had received after years of waiting. But before the joy had even had time to settle, another fear began creeping into my mind. Benji. When we had had Benji for 4 years, she was family. There was no denying that. But Jessie had read too many stories online about dogs that would not accept a new baby. Those stories haunted her. And to be honest, they haunted me too. If Benji did not accept our daughter, we would have to take her to a shelter. That was the decision we had agreed on, even though neither of us wanted to say it out loud. Then one morning, while Jessie was sitting in the kitchen drinking tea, Benji suddenly walked over and lowered her nose close to Jessie's belly and began barking non-stop. It was not happy barking. It was not a greeting bark. It was the bark of an animal trying to communicate something it could not put into words. Jessie looked at me. I looked back at her. Neither of us understood. We took Benji to the veterinarian the following week. I assumed it was simple, that Benji was jealous, or that she sensed the changes in the house and was reacting negatively. The vet did a full examination. Nothing unusual. Benji was completely healthy. Then he said something that made me go cold. Sometimes dogs sense things that humans cannot. I strongly suggest you have your wife checked again. I went home and told Jessie. She burst into tears on the spot. Jessie called her obstetrician and was told to come in immediately. And the person who took her to the hospital that day was not me, because I was stuck in an emergency meeting at work, but Anne Anderson, Jessie's best friend for more than 10 years, the one who always showed up at the right moment, always ready to help, always knew exactly what to say to make Jessie feel better. The examination results showed nothing concerning. The baby was healthy. Jessie was fine. We breathed a sigh of relief. But Benji did not. She kept barking whenever Jessie went out. She kept growing restless on evenings when Anne stayed over. I started getting irritated with Benji. I thought she was just causing trouble, jealous of the attention Jessie was giving the pregnancy. I was completely wrong. Lily was born on a September morning, weighing 3.2 kilograms, with jet black eyes like 2 grapes. It was the most beautiful moment of my life. When we brought Lily home for the first time, Benji was standing at the door waiting. I was so tense I could barely breathe. But Benji did not bark. She did not jump up. She simply stepped closer, gently touched her nose to the blanket wrapped around Lily, then sat down right beside her. From that moment on, Benji did not leave Lily's side for even a second. At first, we thought it was adorable. Jessie often took pictures of Benji lying beside Lily's crib and posted them online. All our friends praised it. I was proud too. I thought Benji had finally accepted the baby and was showing the natural protective instinct of a dog. That is what I thought. Until Anne started babysitting for us. Jessie went back to work when Lily was 2 months old. So did I. Anne volunteered to watch Lily during the day, because she was between jobs at the time. We thanked heaven for a good friend like that. Then the phone calls started. David, Benji won't let Lily sleep. She keeps standing in the crib and won't let me pick Lily up. David, I just shut Benji in another room, and she came lunging out and bit my hand. It's only a scratch, but you need to know. David, today Benji kept staring at me the whole time. She isn't friendly with me anymore. Every time I heard these things, I apologized to Anne on Benji's behalf. I thought Benji was being overly protective of Lily, not wanting anyone except Jesse and me to touch the baby. It was normal dog behavior, I told myself. But there was one thing I noticed at the time and did not think deeply enough about. Benji was only like that when Anne was in the house. When it was just Lily and Benji, everything was completely quiet. The veterinarian spoke plainly to me at the follow-up visit. You can take her to a shelter, or you can find out why she's behaving this way. But I need to be honest, I do not think the problem is coming from the dog. He paused, then added, sometimes dogs do not trust someone for a reason. I drove home with those words echoing in my head. But the moment I stepped through the door, Jessie was already standing there with an unhappy look on her face. I heard you ask the vet about taking Benji away, Jessie said. You are not allowed to do that. Benji has done nothing wrong. I'm trying to figure this out, I replied. You're blaming Anne. Jessie's voice turned colder. Anne is my best friend. She is helping us. You do not get to suspect her for a ridiculous reason like that. I stayed silent. That was the moment I stood in front of a choice. To trust Jessie, my wife, to the woman I loved, or to trust the strange feeling that was growing heavier and heavier in my chest. To trust Benji. I chose silence, and that was a mistake. But I did not give up completely. When Jessie went to bed, I stayed up with my laptop and went online to buy security cameras, not because I was certain Anne was doing something wrong, but because I was the head of security at a large company. I understood better than anyone that a feeling of being unsafe should never be ignored. And the next day, I installed cameras in the living room, the hallway, and Lily's room. Anne asked immediately when she saw them, "Oh, why are you installing cameras? Is that really necessary?" That question, ordinary enough, maybe just curiosity, still caught my attention. She did not ask, "What kind of cameras are those?" or "What are they for?" She asked, "Is that really necessary?" I just smiled. It's just for peace of mind, Anne. For the first 3 days of reviewing the footage, nothing seemed unusual. Benji was still protecting Lily as usual. Anne was babysitting normally. I started to think I was being paranoid. Then, on the morning of the 4th day, I opened the software to review the footage from the night before. Blank. All of the footage from 11 at night to 5 in the morning. Completely blank. I checked the system again. There was no technical error, no power outage. The daytime footage was still intact. Only the nighttime footage had been deleted. My hands began to shake. I did not tell Jessie. I did not tell anyone. Quietly, I set up a separate encrypted backup system, the kind we used at work for top-secret data. The footage would automatically back itself up to a remote server that only I had access to in real time, once every 5 minutes. I could not sleep that night. The next morning, when Jessie had taken Lily for her routine checkup and Anne had not arrived yet, I opened my laptop. And I saw it. 2:17 in the morning. Lily's room. Benji was lying beside the crib, just like every other night. Then suddenly, she lifted her head, ears straight up, eyes fixed on the window. Lily's bedroom window slowly opened. A shadow climbed in. I stared at the screen, unable to believe my eyes. Benji did not bark. She simply rose to her feet and stepped forward, placing herself between Lily's crib and that shadow. Every hair on her body raised, teeth bared in silence. The figure stopped, and then climbed back out the window and disappeared into the darkness. I kept watching. The next night, the shadow was there again. This time it came closer, all the way to my desk in the bedroom next door. It opened my laptop, typed something, then left. Benji stood in the doorway between the two rooms the entire time, never taking her eyes off the intruder. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I looked more closely at the intruder's face when, for one brief second, the streetlight shone through the window. I recognized her. It was Anne. I called the police. I tried to speak as calmly as I could, but my voice was shaking. I said I had footage of someone breaking into my house over multiple nights and accessing my personal computer. I said I recognized the person. The officer on the other end was silent for a few seconds. "You said you work where?" I told him the name of the company. Silence again. Longer this time. "Do not touch anything. And we are on our way." 15 minutes later, I heard sirens at the far end of the street. Not one car, not two, dozens. Jessie got home just as the first cars stopped in front of the gate. She looked at me with panic in her eyes. "David, what is happening?" I led her inside, opened the laptop, showed her the footage. Jessie looked at the screen, looked at the shadow climbing through the window, looked at the face flashing briefly under the light. She collapsed to the floor. "That's Anne," she whispered. "David, that's Anne." The officers came into the house, watched the footage, then asked me many questions about my job. I explained I was the chief operating officer at a private national security company. I had access to certain sensitive systems. The commanding officer looked at me with an expression I could not read. Then Benji, who was upstairs with Lily, suddenly barked. Not a normal bark. It was rapid, relentless, as if she were pointing to something. We ran upstairs. Benji was standing in front of the wall next to the wardrobe, barking non-stop, when her claws scraping against the wall. One of the officers knocked on the wall. It sounded hollow. They brought in a sledgehammer. After 3 blows, the wall broke open. Inside was a hollow space, and in it sat a small black safe. While we waited for someone to break open the safe, the investigation team ran a background check on Ann Anderson. They found nothing. No tax records, no social security number, no driver's license, and no administrative trace of any person named Ann Anderson existing anywhere in the United States. Jessie sat on the sofa, holding Lily in her arms, staring straight into nothing. I sat beside her, not knowing what to say. 10 years. Jessie had known Anne for 10 years, had shared everything with her, had trusted her completely. And that woman did not exist. The safe was opened close to midnight. Inside, cash, jewelry, multiple stacks of documents, and 5 passports under different names, see from different countries. The officer opened the passport on top, looked at the photo, then looked up. We know this person. Her real name was Elizabeth Holmes, not the founder of Theranos, but another name, another person entirely, wanted in 17 countries for industrial espionage. She specialized in infiltrating the families of people who held sensitive information, building trust over many years, then exploiting it when the time was right. She had targeted me before Jessie was even pregnant. Benji had recognized her, not by her face, not by her voice, but by something deeper. The smell of deception, perhaps, or simply the instinct of an animal that knows how to tell who truly belongs to this family and who does not. They caught Elizabeth at the airport, standing in line to board a flight to Frankfurt. When she saw the police, she did not run. She simply stood still, closed her eyes for a second, then held out her hands. She confessed to everything. I was not allowed to know the details. That information was classified. All I know is that whatever Elizabeth was trying to take from my laptop, if she had succeeded, it could have caused damage on a scale I do not even dare imagine. Benji is lying at my feet right now as I write these lines. Lily is asleep upstairs. And for the first time in many months, I know that my daughter is truly safe. I was wrong to think Benji was jealous, wrong to think she was overly protective, wrong to nearly send her to a shelter when she was the one doing the job that I, the father, the husband, the one responsible for protecting this family, should have been doing. I work in security. I know how to assess risk. I know how to identify threats. And I was completely fooled. A dog was not. A neighbor asked me afterward whether I was going to keep Benji, or whether after everything that had happened, I was afraid. I looked down at Benji sitting beside Lily in the yard, her golden eyes half closed under the afternoon sun. Afraid of her? I said. No, I just owe her an apology.